Welcome to the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. I am the host, Attorney John Khosravi, and I practice U.S. immigration law exclusively. For more information about the program, please visit www.immigrationlawyerspodcast.com. Please note that this recording is informational only and does not constitute legal advice. Please consult with a licensed attorney for specific legal guidance that suits your case. Also, this recording is copyrighted and written permission is required for rebroadcasting. For more information about me, please visit www.jqqlaw.com. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. I have a great and wonderful guest today, Jim Hacking. Jim is a great immigration attorney headquartered in St. Louis. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I know he does great immigration work. You see his approvals everywhere. And one thing I really enjoy about his work is that he sues the government when they do kind of crazy things and don't act responsibly. And that's going to be a large part of our talk today. He does a lot of lawsuits, especially in the naturalization sphere when they're lagging too much and they kind of get lost in that black hole. But also, the way I originally got to know Jim is through his podcast, the Maximum Lawyer Podcast, which is a great tool for lawyers in general, but particularly immigration lawyers, to listen, to learn about business development, marketing, how to run a practice, all this kind of stuff. He even has a conference that he does annually, it's a great place to go and meet other people, like-minded people. But I do recommend going to this podcast, the Maximum Lawyer Podcast, and binge listening to all, spend a weekend listening to 10, 20, 30 episodes back to back. It's a wealth of information. Jim, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
So, Jim, your name was in the news because you got some precedent on the Eighth Circuit on a lawsuit you did with regards to a naturalization case that was going too long. Could you break down what the results of that case is, why the lawsuit happened, and what happened with the court decision?
I have a client who came to me. He had been waiting for citizenship for 2 years. Back in 2014, he filed for naturalization. He's a Palestinian fellow. He'd been waiting for a long time. He asked me to help him, so I filed an action in federal court asking a judge to compel USCIS to decide his case or to remand it back to them with instructions. Now, I've sued USCIS in St. Louis especially, but around the country a lot, so they sort of monitor my pleadings. And a few days after I sued them, even before they'd been served, they denied my client's naturalization application. They then filed a motion with the district court saying that the case was now moot because I had obtained what I asked for, which was a decision. And we said, no. Once we filed the action in federal court, then only the judge could decide. The jurisdiction over the case could only rest in one place. It couldn't be at USCIS and with the judge at the same time. Mm-hmm. There were 4 circuits, the first, the fourth, the second, and the ninth, that had all gone our way, that had all said that once you file the action, the federal court has exclusive jurisdiction. But there had been 10 cases at the district court level in the Eastern District of Missouri, where our court is, that had all gone the other way and said that USCIS could still decide a case even after you brought this, what's called a 1447B action. And so the district court, instead of antagonizing any of the members of the bench that he works with, mm-hmm. he agreed with them, and we took it up on appeal. And we argued it last November. They flew in an attorney from Washington, D.C., who frankly did a terrible job. They should have had the attorney who'd won those other 10 cases here in the Eastern District argue it. But they brought this guy in, and pretty readily at the argument, you could tell that the judges were inclined to join their sister circuits, which last Monday they finally did. They finally issued an order saying that the district court had erred, that once I filed the action in federal court, that only the federal judge could decide what should happen with my naturalization, that USCIS couldn't unilaterally decide it. And that's a big benefit not only for my client, but for other people, because USCIS has been holding that in their back pocket and acting like they have discretion even after I filed the lawsuit.
So what happens kind of case? Does this precedent affect other cases that have delays, or is this special for naturalization that a judge can now decide what happens after Nats?
Yeah, so for most delay lawsuits, you're suing in order to get a decision. You're not suing to view the underlying merits of the case, but naturalization cases are different. If an individual has applied for naturalization and they've had their interview and 120 days have gone by, Then on the 121st day, you can go into federal court and you can ask a judge to either naturalize you to conduct a hearing, or they can remand it back to USCIS with instructions. And so our position, and now the position of 5 circuits around the country, is that once you file that action, that the federal court has exclusive jurisdiction over the application. The district courts here in Missouri had held that there was concurrent jurisdiction, that USCIS could still adjudicate it. So that's what's gone on.
So now that we have 5 circuits, essentially that's going to be law of the land. Everyone can challenge it in the remaining circuits.
I would think so. I don't think USCIS is going to try to appeal this to the Supreme Court. I wouldn't think so.
Now, what happens? So does it remand it to the district court, and a judge there is going to make an adjudication?
Yeah, in theory, the judge could have a trial de novo or a hearing on whether or not my man gets his citizenship, or he could just remand it back to USCIS, and they could deny it. And if they denied it, then we would file an N-336 and then probably go back to the district court.
Unfortunately, it's going to be a ton of time. So if you could talk about it with regards to confidentiality, was there a valid basis for USCIS denial?
No. So my client is from Palestine, and he's Muslim, and most of my clients are from Middle Eastern countries and or Muslim countries. And there is a program called CARP, which is the Controlled Application Review and Resolution Program, which is basically a program that started under President Bush back in 2008 that is designed to slow down immigration to the United States by Muslims. And part of that program is that they come up with pretext. And in my man's case, it was a couple tickets. And it was something that I've seen many people get approved with naturalization. And in his case, they use that as a basis for the denial.
Yeah, that's scary. I'm glad you mentioned that detail, because I have cases where clients don't want to mention tickets. And I'm like, tickets shouldn't be a reason for these to get denied. I had one case in Vegas. It took about 6 months of them waiting and saying, we want the original tickets from like 20 years ago. We're like, we don't have it. Eventually worked my way up supervisor and they got approved. But, that they add that citation. It used to be, I think, it says citations excluding traffic tickets. But now they're like, they get picky. The adjustment of status I-45 included that language as well. So it's super annoying. They really shouldn't have that language, because then we have to fill out more stuff, or later on they could potentially get us on sort of misrepresentation if a client forgets about a speeding ticket, even though it shouldn't be an underlying basis for moral character. But that's a difficult thing. So when you do make a decision to make a lawsuit, I mean, I guess you answer one of my questions. It took 2 years for the client to come reach out to you, so that they're just frustrated and they're like, we got to do something. Once you make a decision, you start working. How long does this stuff go to get to a district court? So you file the case, and then what's the next step?
So if it's a 1447B action, I mean, so far they've always been filing motions to dismiss. I mean, the dirty little secret is a lot of times when you sue them, they finally just decide the case. In total, I've sued USCIS and or the State Department over 300 times. Mm-hmm. It's my favorite thing to do. I love to help individuals or even lawyers who've had clients who can't get a decision. And I go into federal court, I file an action, and I serve them a copy of the lawsuit by certified mail. Once I serve them, a clock starts ticking. They have 60 days to answer. So that's when they finally get around to adjudicating it. So I've sued them for citizenship delays, green card delays, overseas visa delays. I've been doing a lot of that right now. And then asylum delays.
Interesting. The asylum days, poor people waiting like 5-6 years to get a hearing is crazy. Right. And so you filed the case, and then usually they let it go. How often have you had it where it goes to trial? Oh, no.
Well, the only trial that I almost had was on an appeal from an N-336. None of these cases get litigated. They hardly ever file motions to dismiss anymore, other than in the travel ban cases. Mm-hmm. For the most part, it's just a matter of getting their attention. So when I serve them, this is how I pictured it in my brain. When I serve them, a copy goes to the agency gives it to their agency counsel. They talk to the U.S. attorney who's assigned to defend the case. The agency counsel calls the agency calls the field office or the service center, and they say, hey, who's got John's file? They go down and find John's file, and they go, hey, why are you taking so long on John's file? Hold on, let me get it. They get it out, they look at it, they decide it. And then it goes back up the chain. Hey, we decided John's case. Tell Hacking to dismiss the lawsuit. Hacking says okay, and that's it.
Interesting. And there's a lot of fear on attorneys as well doing these lawsuits because it might have repercussions. Have you sensed there's any repercussions towards you or your firm and your filings because that you are active in litigation?
Quite the contrary. Quite the contrary. I think that they respect me. They know that I know what I'm doing. They know that I don't bring them BS cases. And most of all, they know that I'm willing to fight everything and appeal everything. So I think we get a lot more traction. And as a side benefit, after you build up a relationship with these U.S. attorneys who are filing the lawsuit, sometimes you can say, hey, look, I got this guy. He's got this problem. He's in, he wants me to sue. But between you and me, can we work it out? Now, I never threatened to sue. I don't send any letters. I don't do any of that stuff. I hear all these lawyers who send draft complaints, all that stuff. It's a waste of time. It's not until there's an actual lawsuit on file with an actual attorney who has to defend it, who has to explain to the judge what's going on. In my experience, that anything short of filing the lawsuit is a waste of time.
And so it's two questions I want to ask. One is, how do you deal with it if it's in other districts and you're not barred in other district courts or circuits and stuff? Are you at this point barred everywhere?
No. So the best thing I ever did was I kept having to bother getting local counsel, right? Mm-hmm. So like you said, I had to get admitted pro hoc vici, and and really I didn't mind doing that. It just slowed me down. So what I did was I went up to Washington, D.C., and I got admitted, and I just sue them up there. The only ones I can't sue up there are ones like this one I just went on appeal where there's actually been an interview, because then you have to file a lawsuit under 1447B in the jurisdiction where the case was adjudicated.
Interesting. And how did you first get started with this? Because I've been hesitant to actually do it myself. I refer it out to other attorneys because it's like learning a whole new field of law, and it takes time, and I'm so busy with podcasting and other stuff, but it's a very important part. How did you learn this area of law?
Well, two things. I was a litigator for 10 years before I was an immigration lawyer. So you could probably explain to me all the ins and outs of a 212 waiver, much better than I ever could. But federal court, I feel really comfortable in. I've dealt with PACER. I actually was filing lawsuits for a plaintiff's firm in federal court before I ever went to law school. So I've been living in PACER for 20 years, and so as long as it's been around, So I'm really familiar with that. I felt really comfortable with that. And then when I first started, like I said, most of my clients are Muslim. I became Muslim back in 1998. And so I was reading an article about the ACLU bringing like a class action in San Francisco for what back then we called it background check. That was before we knew about CARP. And so they were bringing background check cases as class action. So I got onto PACER, and I got one of their complaints, and I went around the mosques, and I said, hey, everybody, who's been waiting for citizenship for more than 1 year? And I put them all in one lawsuit. I tried to make it a class action for all of Missouri, and the judge denied it. But we had 36 people in that first lawsuit, and 34 of them became citizens within 6 months. So then I knew I was onto something. That case got publicity, so I got 18 more Muslims who wanted to get their citizenship. So I filed it again, asked again for it to be class action. They said no. So that's why I've been doing them one at a time ever since.
Oh, awesome. So any other success stories or interesting stuff from doing these lawsuits other than in the naturalization realm?
Well, last year I got contacted by a young lady who'd been waiting for her husband, or actually her fiance, to come from Morocco. Mm-hmm. And she said, Jim, there's this whole group of people who've been trying to get their fiancés and spouses here from Morocco. If you help me, I think you may be able to help them. So
Morocco is one of the worst. I think they're probably it's almost as bad as like the Iran situation clients. I heard Morocco is one of the highest denial rates and all that.
Is that something you've heard? Because I've certainly seen it. I've now sued them since last October. I've sued them 40 times.
I remember seeing statistically
they've reversed themselves.
Yeah, I've seen that. I think that the highest B1, B2 denial rate. I remember reading a stat like last year, and that just it set the tone. I'm like, damn, they don't even trust anybody to have non-immigrant intent there.
Something's wrong in that place. I don't know what it is. The fun part is my wife and I, our 20th anniversary is this year, and we're going to Morocco. So I'm going to see if I can get a tour of the embassy, and then I'm going to say, hey, suckers, I'm the one that keeps suing you.
Very interesting. And so you got you get the K-1s overturned when you do that?
Not overturned. They're just delayed. They're just sitting. Now, they are sending some back, right? So we just got brought in on a case to try to respond to a notice of intent to revoke. I generally don't like doing those, but for the most part, these cases are just sitting.
So by not doing those, you mean you prefer to just get married and refile an I-130 because it's going to
Yeah.
take too long? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, normally these notice of invoke, all of a sudden a year or two goes by before you get any notice. I had one where they came to me and USCIS moved on it in like 3 months. I was surprised, but usually it's like a black hole. And so if you're going to be a Moroccan case, generally it's better just to get married, unless the relationship is like super fresh and for whatever reason the bona fides don't look good. But I hear that this notice of intent to deny stuff is so difficult. So yeah, it's fascinating. So what is the focus? Are you a full service law firm, or do you focus on litigation and like marriage kind of cases, or do you do removal defense and the like as well?
We're doing less and less removal. I find it very stressful. I had a deportation case 2 months ago, and I swear to God, John, every night at 3 a.m. for 3 weeks, I woke up thinking about this case.
Yeah.
And my fee was $5,000. I can do a lawsuit for the same amount or less. I can do 2 lawsuits in the amount of time it takes me to think about the pleadings in federal and deportation court. There's so much stress. So we've really tried to do less deportation. Other than that, it's mostly family. We do a fair amount of H-1B. We've done some litigation on H-1Bs. We've had some denials that instead of filing a 290B, we've just gone ahead and sued them as a violation of the APA.
That's a good move. Yeah, I'm turning that. Like my problem is clients want to do the 290B, and I'm like, no, don't do that. It's a waste of time. 6 months later, you're. I mean, I do for L1s, and like it used to be okay. It used to work out, but now it's like by the time you get a decision, even if it's a win, your business has been left. You left the business, it's dying, and you just wasted tons of money. So you got to go hard at them. That's the focus I'm pushing clients to. And it really is the fear. So how do you have clients overcome the fear of suing the government? Because they're coming from foreign countries that, you sue the government, you're going to disappear. Or you can't even sue the government in most of the countries. So
Right.
How do you deal with their hesitation in this? It's just reputation and saying, I've done it, that does the job?
This is what I tell them. I say, in the 300 cases that I've filed, only 1 out of the 300 have I thought that they went after my client hard for having sued them. I've had at least 5 clients have someone at the USCIS 1-800 number, after they expressed all their frustration, had someone who works at USCIS tell them, you should sue us. Wow. It's not, the thing is, they're not taking it personally. I'm not asking the people to lose their job. I'm not asking to take money out of USCIS employees' pockets. I'm just asking the government to do what they're supposed to do. So nobody takes it personally. Nobody gets bent out of shape about suing. They just realize it's a way to get to the head of the line.
One thing is sometimes these cases, the officer might have just misplaced the file and can't find it and forgot about it. And it takes a lawsuit to get things going. That's stupid.
I agree.
So now just moving on. So it's a long story. We could definitely do another podcast on this. But what made you give the switch to immigration law? Was it your change of faith, or was it other stuff involved that got you into immigration?
Oh, yeah. So I was a maritime lawyer for 10 years, and I did inland river barge and boat crashes and things.
Yeah.
Whenever I went to the mosque, people would say, hey, can you help me with this immigration thing? And I'd say, no, I work on barges. And they go, what in the hell's a barge? And I'd say, when you go down to the river, look, and you'll see them. And then I kept turning it down, and then I would try to refer it to other immigration lawyers, and they'd be all like, Jim, I'm too busy. Don't send me more stuff. And I was working at this really good firm. I actually became a partner, but we had 3 attorneys, and we only had 3 clients. And I was like, I'm 35 years old. We have 3 clients. If we lose a client, I'm probably out of a job. I don't want to ever be that way. I'd rather have my own book of business. So I went out and got 1 client at a time. And now if a client leaves, I have plenty of other work.
Yeah, the diversification of immigration law practice is great once you get the flow rolling. Like, that's where when the travel ban happened, it hit my Iranian practice side really hard. But I'd built up resilience over the years that it didn't affect it necessarily that bad. But if it was when I was first starting, most of my cases were Iranian, I would have been like a death blow to my firm.
Sure.
So diversifying and having a wide clientele and taking different types of cases is key. I'm pretty narrowed down to like just doing family marriage cases, L1s, E2s, and what is it called? Extraordinary ability EB1As. So I have clocked it down, but my secondary way is I do a lot of education teaching stuff that's just bringing in revenue. So I balance it out. So I tell lawyers have multiple ways of making money. As with Trump, especially, you might just shut down the borders. This guy's crazy enough to do something like that.
Right.
And so how do you like being an immigration attorney?
Oh, well, I like it a lot. I don't know that I need to go to many more naturalization interviews or green card interviews. I feel like I've been doing that now for 12 years solid, and I'm still learning stuff. I still take notes, but it's not really where I find my energy. My energy right now is on the lawsuits. I've filed. I think we filed 70 so far this year.
Nice.
So being able to take someone who's stuck, who's completely frustrated, who's banging their head against the wall, and they call the senator, they call the ombudsman, they call USCIS, they call the embassy, nothing happens. And being able, I mean, I think it's really an amazing thing that me, this little attorney in St. Louis, Missouri, can take out this keyboard and start typing some stuff. And I set in motion a process whereby the head of Homeland Security, the head of Immigration, and the head of the State Department all receive a copy of my little lawsuit for my little client in Teaneck, New Jersey, who's trying to get his wife here from Morocco. And then by doing that, a process happens whereby a lady gets to come to the United States to begin her life with her husband and her baby. And to be able to do that in about 2 months' time, I find that to be very, very fulfilling.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I had a student contact me. A student of mine is an attorney who's I'm teaching how to be an immigration lawyer, and he was doing another field, and it's not satisfying because usually dealing with insurance companies or some plaintiff or defense attorney wants to fight you in a deposition, and it's like at the end of the day, it's just arguing over money over like frivolous stuff, and people take stuff way too personally. But we're like doctors dealing with life and death. Like people are going to be separated, or they have to go back to some place they're going to get killed. This is like it's hardcore kind of work that we do. So it's every day is satisfying. Having to file a lawsuit, to me, it's really frustrating because it's like the lack of justice and fairness that someone has to spend money, wait an additional 6 months, a year to get something going. That like absolutely pisses me off, and that's why a lot of the podcast time I'm spending nowadays is just to educate our colleagues, because this podcast is for other immigration lawyers, to not be afraid. If they're not going to do it, I'm bringing all the people that they can refer cases to, so they can send them to them and just get this ball rolling. Because if they get enough of these, eventually they're going to be okay. It's not worth our time to have our lawyers constantly one by one challenging that. So let's just fix the system. I mean, hopefully that's that's the goal. But just like, you know, there are real situations where some people are doing fraud or something funny that they need to be denied or whatever. But vast majority of them are cookie cutter cases that should be done and don't affect, other than positive stuff for the country, don't do anything, nothing negative. And so to hold people back on that in the essence of this country, which is immigration, it's the core of this country is immigration. It's just a shame. So I'm glad we came on. I definitely want to set up another time where we could just talk about the Maximum Lawyer podcast, business development stuff, because that's a passion that we both have. But I'll just give I guess a little bit a taste for people. What got you into starting the immigration? I say my own podcast name, the Maximum Lawyer podcast. What joy did you have in business development that caused that to happen?
So it's funny. So my podcast partner is a fellow named Tyson Mutrix. I taught one semester, like how to open up your own law firm at the law school one summer, and Tyson was my student. And so we became friends, and we would go out to lunch and we'd have these great conversations, and I'd be mentoring him and telling him how to do stuff. And I said one day, hey, we should record these. These are really good, and we could share them with other people. So he said, okay. So like for the first 20 episodes or so, it's just he and I talking, and then we started bringing on guests and things. And there's a podcast that I really like called I Love Marketing, which I highly recommend. And if you want to start at episode number 1 and go at least to number 30, those are all great. And so we just modeled it after that. And the good thing about him is I am on the Colby Index, I'm a 10 quick start, and he's like a 9 follow through. So we're a good combination, because I'll like think up stuff, and he makes sure that the trains run on time and that the episodes come out on time. We've been going, you know how it is. We've been going for 3 years and we haven't missed a week. So that part I'm pretty proud of. What is
the Colby Index? I've heard that before. COLBI.
It's KOLBE, and I think it's like a 40 question test. It costs like $50. We've had our whole firm do it, the Colby Index, and there's 4 different quadrants: fact finder, quick start, follow through, and then there's one more. And we've actually gone ahead, after everyone did the assessment, we put it on their doors, and it's sort of like where you find your energy or where you find your passion. And so when you go in to talk to someone, if you look at like my wife is the exact opposite of me. She's a 1 quick start. She's my law partner too. So she's a 1 quick start, and she's like a 9 follow through. So when I go in to talk to her about something, I see that on her door, and it reminds me, oh, you need to give her some more facts. You can't just shoot from the hip like you do.
Interesting. I'm going to look into that. It's fascinating.
That's good. You'll like it. Yep.
It's just so much. It's magical almost that these podcasts are there. There's so much information. I mean, the world is probably going to change really dramatically in next generation because we have access to such good information. Now, a lot of people kind of get lost in the, watching kittens on YouTube and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But this information back in the day, people had to go to Harvard and be like 1 out of a million to have access to some sort of special information. It's all there. It's so easy to get. You could just be jogging and get this info. This is amazing. So, yeah, thanks for everything that you shared. I definitely has helped my business listen to your podcast, and I enjoy. I follow you on Facebook, all this stuff. I see your firm podcast that pop up. It's great marketing, but it's great help. You had one you just posted. I really enjoyed talking about processing times and how people take it too seriously. And so I'm like, oh, thank God. I get so many people call me, just want to know how long it takes. I'm like, well, it takes me 15 minutes for you to explain that. I need to have a consultation just to explain to people that it takes longer because they don't want to listen. They just want a number. I'm like, I just can't give you a number. They think I'm being a jerk or want to charge them for that. But I'm like, it's frivolous. There's no numbers. It's who knows. Like right now with the F2A category becoming current, I have a case where someone's overseas and we're doing constant processing for a spouse of a lawful permanent resident. And I'm like, technically, if it's current, it could maybe take the same amount of time as an immediate relative case, but not necessarily because I-130s right now for LPR marriages are taking like 15, 16 months. I have a couple of cases. And immediate relatives marriage cases are taking like 8 or 9 months. It used to be like 4 or 5 months to be done. So it's like, who knows what's going to happen? Nat's cases take a year sometimes. When it's pretty much typically, when I have an Iranian case, it takes 3 more months than the average non-Iranian case does here in Southern California. That's just anecdotally from what I see. So I always have to keep that in mind and say, okay, it's going to take a couple months longer. I haven't seen them get delayed more. That's not to get approved or need lawsuits and stuff. But there's no answer to this stuff. If people want quick answers, I'm like, this is law. There ain't no quick answers. That's why you hired me to do all this kind of stuff.
For sure.
So with that, what are the best ways people to contact you, learn about you, and all this kind of stuff?
Sure. So I have a group for immigrants called Immigrant Home on Facebook, I have a YouTube channel with a lot of immigration videos on there. If you just search for Jim Hacking Immigration, they'll come up. Twitter, I'm at Jim Hacking, and then the podcast is just MaximumLawyer.com. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll set up a time to do a full one, but I want to get this information out because it's so fresh and it's exciting to see a good case precedent from a circuit court. It's really exciting. Have you ever done that before? Have you got circuit court decisions before? Not since I started doing immigration. I have a maritime case that went up. We won. But awesome. Yeah. Well, that's good. Great work, man. I mean, how did you? I mean, I guess you typically don't need to even take it to that circuit court, but like, what was the process when it happened? And you're like, okay, we got to take it to the next level. When the district court denied originally, was it immediate? Well, like we got. I actually got sick of them doing this to my clients, and I said, these district court cases are wrong. Let's go. And he said, okay. So nice. He's been waiting for now he's been waiting 5 years for citizenship. It's actually his third application. I mean, wow. I'm speechless. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I'm glad you did that. I'm glad he reached out to you. How did he find you? Just through podcasts and knowing that you do this kind of stuff, or is he a local? No, from the mosque. From the mosque. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's one of the best old school outreaches, just one-on-one in community. That's awesome. For sure. Awesome. I have a preference for online marketing for getting clients. Like that's my complete preference. I don't like personal referrals because I get down to business much quicker when it's online. Do you have a preference of your online business or as opposed to in person, or what are your thoughts about that? I was in BNI doing a lot of networking for a long time, and I am convinced that in 2019 that we all have enough tools that you can build an entire law firm online. Yeah, I was doing provisors for years, and I'm like, just through LinkedIn, because I created this immigration lawyers toolbox, and I wanted to push to get more followers on LinkedIn. And so I just started posting my writings and stuff right there. And immediately that led to all these conversations where every day I talk to another lawyer and just clients coming in. I'm like, why am I waking up in the morning and go to provisors like a BNI kind of thing, and then having to go talk to people who won't send me cases, then have lunch with them and spend all this time and money and then they would never refer me stuff, or they were all older people that look kind of down on me for some reason, or that kind of stuff.
And I'm like, I reach out to people on LinkedIn, and it's just constantly both networking, friendships, and it's just business from across the country. So it's fascinating how the internet works. No immigration lawyer should not be making good money. I mean, you should make enough money. We have all this time to do all this extra stuff, more advocacy. It shouldn't be a struggle to be for practicing immigration, as long as you're doing a good job. If you're a crappy lawyer, it's not going to work out. But
Right.
I mean, just study, work on it. There's so much material out there. It shouldn't be a challenge to get things up running, especially how low costs are nowadays with running a practice. You don't need to have all the crazy stuff and expensive marketing like you used to if you wanted to launch or something like that. But we'll definitely set up a time to talk more about this stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Same here. Thanks, Jim. Have a good one.
All right, buddy. See you.
Bye-bye.